Hey there, everybody. Welcome to this week's live training event. Hopefully your week's been good so far. I realize that it's already Thursday, so we've got one more day left and it's the weekend, so looking forward to that. Like I said, hopefully your week's been good and you're counting down. We're getting close. Uh, so this week we're going to be talking about mindfulness. And if you've been watching the news at all in the past couple of years, you'll have noticed that this is a very hot topic. And many people then start to wonder, what is mindfulness? Where did it come from? How should you do it? Should you be doing it? All these questions. So today we're going to be taking a look at all of those things. Um, so for first of all, mindfulness is a state of alert and focused relaxation. I'm gonna let that sink in for just a second because that sort of sounds like a contradictory term, right? You're being alert and focused, but you're relaxing. How is that possible? So this means what you're doing is you're actually carefully and deliberately observing your thoughts and feelings, but you're not judging. And so this is important because you're essentially trying to focus on the present moment, rather than thinking about, things that happened in the past and worrying about those, or worrying about what's going to happen in the future. So by focusing on the present moment, this is what mindfulness is. Um, so it originally has its roots in like Buddhist meditation and is part of their teachings to develop skills of self-knowledge and will and wisdom on the path to enlightenment. Um, and obviously in Buddhist teachings, enlightenment means the freedom of suffering, complete freedom of suffering. So that'd be nice. But the term itself, mindfulness, it comes from that concept of Buddhist teachings, but the term was coined by Jean Kabat-Zinn, who used that word, figuring and make it more appealing to a mass audience. And so he started in 1979 a the mindfulness based stress reduction technique, or MBSR. And this was at the University of Massachusetts Medical School. So it helped bring the idea of mindfulness to essentially the American mainstream. And so it was used in many different types of therapy to help people reduce anxiety and stress. So since then, though, countless of programs have launched it into schools, hospitals, prisons, businesses, all sorts of different places. And what it's doing is encouraging people to have both physical and mental well-being. And this is very, very important, obviously. And this is where we're getting into tapping into the mental part of our brain as far as how it relates to our overall physical health and well-being. Um, so this gets to the question of, is mindfulness beneficial? And obviously, it's been shown to reduce stress, but stress reduction, obviously, in itself is a great thing because stress reduction results in lower blood pressure, helps reduce chronic pain. It can help alleviate certain gastrointestinal disorders. It helps you better manage like heart disease and improves your quality of sleep. All of these are awesome things. So just by reducing your stress alone, right there, mindfulness has many, many positive benefits. Um, and that's just physical benefits. When you look at the mental aspect of it, mindfulness it can help with treat or prevent things like depression, anxiety disorders, eating disorders, substance abuse problems, um, OCD, and in some cases, it actually can help with conflict resolution between couples. So this is why when we're talking about mindfulness and benefits, there's very, very significant benefit to doing mindfulness practice, as they call it. Um, so when we're doing this, it's helping you to accept past experiences, especially like painful emotions, rather than avoiding them. You're actually, the more in depth you go into mindfulness, it helps you through this processing of your past experiences. And so the whole goal is to acquire a better understanding of your irrational, maladaptive, or self-defeating thoughts. And that way, when you know what these thoughts are, then you can start developing a plan that will help you guide you through this, and therefore, then you're no longer having those thoughts. Um, So the other side benefit is when you practice mindfulness, it's not just for the negative stuff, but it's for the positive stuff. So you're actually able to fully engage in activities. And this means that you're going to enjoy the pleasurable things in life better because you're fully engaged in that moment of whatever's taking place. And so and when you have that, then you have a better ability to deal with all of the adverse events, all of the not the fun stuff, the negative stuff that's going to come up in the future. So when you're not worrying about past regrets and failures and all this other stuff, you're also less likely to have self-esteem issues, be more focused on success, all that. And because of the fact that when you're focusing on the moment, it's going to improve your relationships because you're going to have better relationships with the people that you're spending time with because you're actually focusing on them in that moment. Um, so all of this together gives you that sense of just an overall well-being when you're practicing mindfulness, because you have all the different components that work together to create a new and improved version of you. Um, so when it comes to like techniques, there's multiple different variations that you can do. The basic version, which is the primary version that most people use, is where you sort of like meditate by sitting quietly, focusing on your breathing or a word, and then just that you repeat silently to yourself. And then as you are sitting there, you sort of allow your thoughts to come and go. And then return your focus back to your breathing or whatever your word is, and then just keep repeating this process. And what that's designed to do is to help create the awareness of what you're thinking about. And remember, the key here thing is we're just creating awareness of what our thoughts are. We're not judging, we're not doing anything of that sort. Um, so all of the other variations have some form of the breathing, the word, something that you're initially focusing on before you sort of just let your thoughts take over. Um, and it can be like involving sensations and all that input from your body. You know, what does your stomach feel like, or your muscles tight? And then let go of these thoughts. Uh, so another great technique to start with is you can do this as a progressive thing, starting with your head, going down to your toes, working your way through your body. So first you start by thinking about your head. Notice any sensations. You know, is your head warm? Is your hair messed up? You know, different weird things that you're getting inputs from. And then letting it go. Move on to the next part of your body. Notice that part. And you can also do it with your five senses. So any of those, your emotions, so like anger, happiness, sorrow, fear, frustration, whatever it is. Focus on something and then let it go. And that's the key process here is you want to focus on something and then just sort of let your mind do its thing. It's going to give you incredible insight into how your brain works. And this whole process can be a huge help when it comes to dealing with cravings, because by being aware of how your body feels when you start having a craving, then you can do certain things to help avoid giving into that craving. Because then hey, a craving's coming on. Let me get out in front of this and do something to deal with it. And obviously, it's going to be challenging at first. That's to be expected. But the more you practice it, the more you're going to become aware of a multitude of different things going on all at once around you. Your senses, your emotions, your thoughts, all of that. External environmental cues. I mean, it's just that our body subconsciously is processing all this all the time. It's that we're becoming aware of what this is. And that's the key thing is once you establish your concentration, is just to let your thoughts, emotions, everything flow. Don't judge, just let it flow. Um, and this is the hardest part. It's not to latch onto something and stick with it and then get pulled off down like a sidetrack or a rabbit hole, and then you end up thinking about that. So this is, you expect your mind to wander, daydream, criticize, go into planning mode. And when it does this, you just notice that, and then gently redirect it back to whatever it is that you're using, your breathing, your word, your sensations, whatever it is that your target is. And so that way you're not getting stuck on a certain thing. Um, and don't beat yourself up over the wandering. I mean, it's a natural part of this. Your brain is going to go down this path of doing what it's doing. Um, and so initially, when you're doing this might not seem relaxing, because it's going to take some actual concentrated effort and work. And so, but over time, as you become more comfortable with the process, know the process, that it's going to make you more comfortable with it, just experiencing anything in life, because you're going to be more aware, and self-awareness is great because it helps us, regulate our emotions and all that as well. Um, and this is where, I mean, it's still used as a formal meditation practice in therapy, especially things like cognitive behavior therapy. Um, but now it's also considered more of a mode of being. A lot of people talk about living like a mindfulness lifestyle. And this is where it's just being, you know, knowing what's going on around you and being in tune to your environment and others in your environment and how that's impacting you and how you feel is so key. Um, so when you're trying to start implementing this process, and this is where, you don't have to sit and meditate. There's other ways to incorporate mindfulness into your everyday life. So, for instance, pick one small activity, routine activity that you do every day, and focus solely, completely on that while you're doing that activity. Great example. Um, Showering, eating, washing your car, washing the dishes, you know, using the washing the dishes example, this one's great. It's like, okay, is the water hot? Is it cold? How does it feel? Is it wet? What are you washing? Are you washing utensils? Are you washing plates? What type of plates or cups? It's all of that. What else is going on around you in the room? Is there noise going on in the background? Is your family being loud? By focusing on that, you really start to get in touch with that inner dialogue, the inner sense of what's going on underneath that we don't normally pay attention to. And this is the key thing, is we're slowing down and focusing on being fully present in the moment as it unfolds. And by involving all your senses, you're going to get all that input that we normally just subconsciously process. Um, and so that's why by doing this, you're going to get that awareness that is so critical to, just in general. The more you practice it with other mundane tasks, essentially, um, that's where you're going to be able to do it during other activities that it would be a struggle to do if you don't do the daily practice, essentially. And so you're probably wondering, how long should you do it for at a time? Well, obviously, the more you do it, the easier it gets, the more you're going to be able to do it just naturally. But initially, when you're starting out, you need to have a dedicated time frame for it. And roughly, it's about 20 minutes to start, and then you can increase it from there. And the reason why 20 minutes is because it takes about that long for your brain to actually calm down and to start to focus on something. Um, so if you ever think of, you're in a hurry, you've got a lot going on, you're trying to think of 20 different things, and then finally you have to sit down and focus on a specific task. Well, how long does it really take for you to get into that groove, that work groove, that focus, that highly, dedicated mode of this is what I'm working on right now? It's usually about 20 minutes. So this is why when you're practicing mindfulness, by doing the whole concept of actually sitting, either meditating, breathing, whatever you're going to do, and do that at first. And then you can start incorporating all these other things. It's like trying to do, you know, mindful activity concept of where you're doing an activity and focus on that. How are you feeling? What are the senses? All that. And then you can start looking at, as these thoughts come up, how does that impacting, your previous experiences as far as, what were you thinking then? How did you feel then? And as you process through all this, that helps you become more in touch with, obviously processing past experiences, but who you are in that moment, and then that'll help guide you towards the future as far as, okay, well, that's not where I want to be anymore, or, I like certain aspects of that, but in the future, I want it to be different. It's just creating that level of awareness that so many of us don't have. And by practicing mindfulness every day, you're going to see that benefit physically, mentally. I mean, obviously, stress reduction for most of us would be a great benefit in itself. But but also you're going to have increased happiness because you're going to have better relationships, you're going to have better health, and all of that is key to feeling good. And obviously, who can't benefit from that, right? Who doesn't want to be less stressed, more happy, and just enjoy life more? So the key thing to remember is it's going to take some effort, but it will pay off and you will feel the benefits. And I mean, just even trying it for a week is enough to see the benefits as far as stress reduction. And then obviously everything else compounds from there. So that's pretty much mindfulness in a nutshell. Obviously, we could go much further into as far as different techniques and all of that, which if at some point we would like to, if you guys should show an interest in that, I'd be happy to go over that. But I just wanted to give you a general overview of the concept of mindfulness, why it's important, and how you can start doing little things to incorporate it. I mean, obviously, that's the key thing, right? Is to be able to make small tweaks and see, not huge results necessarily all the time, but you want to see some improvement in your life. Otherwise, why do all these changes? And so that's where mindfulness can be incredibly helpful in that. I want to thank you guys for joining me today. Um, if for those watching live, that was great. I'm so glad you were able to find the time in your day to join in. For those all of you catching it on the replay, thank you for tuning in. I always appreciate your support. If you guys have questions, comments, please put them below. I'd love to hear from you. Send me a message. Um, if there's specific topics you want me to discuss, we can do that as well. But otherwise, you guys have a good rest of your week. Have a good weekend. Take some time to relax, incorporate some mindfulness into your weekend, and I will see you guys next week. Until then, though, stay healthy.